Hey, welcome everybody. Let's talk real estate. Your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California. As we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul, and good morning to all of our viewers and our listeners out there. Thanks again for tuning in. It is Tuesday. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company, managing partner of Saywitz Properties, and we are here talking real estate again. Before we get going with today's show, I do want to do a shout out to all the servicemen and women who are out there who are fighting to make the world a safer and better place in any part of the world, especially in the Middle East. We wish you well, be safe, and do your job well for us all. With all of that said, I want to welcome our esteemed guest, Michael Rademaker, who is the CEO and founder of MGR Real Estate, which is a regional real estate company. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity of talking to everybody in Orange County as well as yourself.
Yeah, and wherever you are out there, we're talking to you, and hopefully you take away one good thing from our conversation. And if we don't know the answer, we're going to make it up. That's how it works in my company. I don't know about yours.
It's real estate.
Yeah, that's it. So, look, you've been in real estate quite a long time, longer than I, extremely successful, have grown your company multifaceted. But before we talk about all the successes, I want to go back to the beginning and kind of talk about how you got going. Because in my research of where you've been and where you've come to, you started at a very early age.
Yeah, I got into real estate when I was 19 years old. I was going to college, and it probably wasn't me. And I was having a hard time. I didn't like some of the math. Somebody suggested that I go into real estate. They said, if you're likable and tell the truth, you don't have to be that smart because the truth never changes.
It's good words. And 19 years old, you get into residential or commercial real estate?
I started out in residential, and I worked originally with a company called Red Carpet, which I don't even think is around anymore.
No, but I remember.
Then I went to work for a gentleman by the name of Bruce Mulhern, whose company is still around. And he taught me a great deal about residential real estate, which was his specialty. But he also taught me that residential real estate is still an investment. And he taught me the concept of whether it be a commercial via apartments, industrial land, or having a bunch of houses. It was the same concept. The numbers just change as you get into bigger things. So I was in residential for about probably 15 years. I did very well. I worked hard. Then I transitioned into apartments, and then eventually into my strongest suit, which is office.
Yeah, and I find that you need cash flow, right? And so everybody's got bills to pay. And so on the brokerage, my experience personally as well was if you make a deal, you make a bunch of money. You don't make a deal, you make zero. And it's very hard to pay the bills, cover your expenses. And so when you get into investing, hopefully people pay their rent and hopefully you're buying deals that throw off cash flow. And so for you transition and your beginnings go back to the Inland Empire, right? And your offices are in Upland. You started in the Inland Empire back when it was a lot of farmland and not much out there, which was a great time to get into it, right? But different ballgame than LA or Orange County at the time.
Yeah, I started originally in Covina for a very short time, and I went out to the Inland Empire because it was affordable. You could buy relatively new homes for $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, which seems crazy now, but then it was expensive. And when I was buying properties, I think in the 80s, I got hurt like everybody else when the prices took its first drop. And I bought, like everybody else, properties that made no sense, and it was all based upon inflation. So if you buy a house that doesn't make any money and you're going to feed it until it goes up in value, it was a prescription for failure.
Yeah, and a lot of people were in that same mess. And then it's interesting because people forget, and then it happened again in 2007.
And they keep doing the same thing over and over. I always tell people when you're buying a piece of property, whether it be a house or an apartment or a commercial building, if it doesn't make money each month, you can't ride the cycles.
Yeah.
And you can't underwrite it as if interest rates are always going to be low. I've been underwriting interest rates at 7% since 2008. When the market dropped and interest rates went down to 3.5%, I still underwrote at 7%.
Which is higher than any bank was even underwriting.
And so I wasn't buying as much as some of my colleagues, but I was still buying a lot.
Yeah.
And when the market did its adjustments recently, I didn't get impacted like so many other people because I had the room.
Yeah, your basis was lower, and you weren't tied to your mortgage doubling or more than that like many other people. And the focus originally was heavy on the office side, and office did well for many years, really did well, I guess, until COVID, right? Until people just stopped going to work. And you started buying the Inland Empire. Inland Empire blossoms, grows, expands across the board, really is its own economy now as opposed to just a feeder from LA or Orange County like it was, and really has its own dynamics. How have you seen the Inland Empire change over the years? And then what was the methodology you were using to buy properties out there?
I originally bought in the Inland Empire because nobody wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So I was getting really good deals, and I started buying more and more buildings. And I woke up one day and I had the majority of them. COVID hit the world hard in the office market, but the Inland Empire was the number one producing Class A office market in the United States of America for 7 straight quarters. With occupancy, growth, even through COVID, we never really dropped below 95% occupancy, paying occupancy.
Which is interesting. And why do you think that is? Is that because the industrial market was so hot then and it helped the office market along?
I think initially it was because the rents were a little bit lower. The workforce was moving out towards the Inland Empire because of affordable housing. Companies were downsizing in LA and right-sizing in the Inland Empire. And the market fundamentals were good. The airport was taken back by the city and the county. LAX lost its control. Feeder flights came in. Industrial blossomed. It was everything that they promised would happen in the 70s and 80s happened. Finally happened.
Yeah. And I remember going out to the Inland Empire even in the 90s and even around around 2000. You'd still go out there. You'd get out of the car in the summertime and you'd smell the horse manure and the cow manure, and it smelled like you were in farmland. And you'd have this really nice, brand new industrial complex next to this farm. And you don't smell that. You don't even see that anymore. And when you were out there, there wasn't that kind of competition. At some point, all these bigger real estate investment companies and developers woke up and said, hey, we can go to the Inland Empire and we can make money out there because there wasn't as much opportunity near the coast.
I first started my career out there. The 60 freeway wasn't there. The 210 freeway wasn't there. There was the 10.
That was it.
In Foothill Boulevard. What you said is true. It was wide open territory. And that was 50 years ago for me when I got in the business.
See, now you're dating yourself.
I know. I'm a little bit older. But I got into it young, so I'm still very young.
And you have not particularly sold a bunch over the years, which goes back to the mantra that if you hold something long enough, it should be worth more at the end of the day.
Yeah, my aunt told me, she says, if you buy one property per year and you keep it, if it never goes up in value, it will be paid off in 30 years and you'll be a really smart person.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you'll have cash flow.
And you have a lot of cash flow, and you'll be happy. And someday you might even be talking to Barry.
There you go. And I feel like you bought more than one a year, so you've exceeded your aunt's trajectory for you. So, Inland Empire Industrial really takes off. I remember doing deals out there at 25 cents a square foot, and I remember getting 6 months or a year free rent. You probably get that in some places now, the free rent, but rent-wise, no way, and the replacement cost, no way, because the land is more valuable. And people want to be out there now because it really is a more central place to get to San Diego or Orange County or LA or even Phoenix in terms of a trucking standpoint.
The industrial market, we'll say rents are anywhere from $1.25 to $1.75 triple net.
Yeah.
The net to landlord on an industrial space is far better than even an office.
No question. No question.
It's booming. Ontario International has become one of the leading freight locations in the country. It's booming. It's probably borderline trying to absorb everything they've built now, and there's a little bit more vacancy than normal industrial, but it's still a strong market. Their prices have gone up a lot, though, Barry, because it used to be on a price per foot, and a lot of these industrial buildings were 12 to 18, 20 foot tall.
Right.
Now they're 40-foot tall, and they're using electronics and cranes and different types of stacking methods. So they're more on a cubic foot cost.
Yeah.
So they were able to double the rent just by making the building a little taller.
Yeah, and I guess the other secret, too, is I remember a lot of leases were on a gross basis back in the day. And then landlord would take care of the roof, landlord would take care of the air conditioning or maybe the parking lot. And then some smart guys woke up and said, we're just going to switch everything to triple net, put the onus back on the tenant. And then secondly, it really is a net deal where I don't have exposure in terms of costs at the end of the day.
I think that I agree, and at the same time, there is a difference. Even on a gross lease or a full service lease, they have base year. So if your operation costs maybe call it $10, and if the costs go up to $12 because you have these improvements to do, you still get to pass that money on to the tenants. If you read the lease and make sure you did it correctly in the beginning, you can still take your increased costs and pass it through. So that's what's saved us.
Yeah. And I feel like, too, if you've owned the property for a long time and your basis is low, whether it's you or someone like the Irvine Company, then your tax basis is lower, which should be a benefit to the tenant at the end of the day.
It's been a big benefit, especially as I've been acquiring in the Orange County market. A lot of the buildings had taxes based on $400 a foot.
Yeah.
And I'm buying them for $150. So immediately the property taxes are dropping and the tenants get an immediate benefit from it because my costs are lower.
So you pass it back through to them and then it'll help you stay full and everybody seems to be happy.
That's correct. It's like you said, we've talked basis a lot of times. If you get into the property too high, it's really hard to make any money ever.
Yeah.
If you own it and keep it long enough or buy it cheap enough, you can ride the cycles.
I'm also curious your take on it because I look at office rents and I at least look at my history of doing deals and where the market goes. And it goes up and down. It is not up forever, right? It isn't. And cap rates go up and down, rents go up and down, concessions go up and down, occupancy goes up and down. And I always looked at it, and I remember with Sam Zell when he was on his buying spree back in the day, and it was like somebody flipped the light, kind of like that movie Trading Places, and they said, okay, we're buying. And then people would just come running, and they were selling to him at a 6 cap or 7 cap, and were happy to just get out and move on. In today's market, I feel like the office market, as we sit today, really a struggle. Irvine Company shedding buildings that they own in San Diego. I don't know if it's a give up or it's just repositioning. And then you see a lot of the smaller, more antiquated, older office buildings getting sold and torn down, and they go for highest and best use, which may be apartment or medical or even industrial, which has a better net return, as you mentioned. So I guess I'll ask the question, why buy more office?
Because I believe that, I think J. Paul Getty once said, when people are selling, it's time to buy. And when people are buying, it's time to sell. And in Orange County specifically, there's been a fire sale. Buildings that were $400 a foot are being sold for anywhere from $125 to $150 a foot, which is just barely over land value. I decided to come to Orange County and start actively buying office, which I've bought a lot. But I bought Class A, strategically located, nice properties that would be a sin to tear down.
Yeah.
And I bought them with a low tax basis, and I bought them around areas where there were older woody walk-ups and buildings that would be torn down. And as the 7 million plus feet of office that are being torn down, they were at least 3.5 million feet of occupied tenants. They have to go someplace. So I've been strategically getting the relocations in my buildings, and I've done pretty good. And
you can incentivize them. So I find that there's not the discrepancy in today's world between a B-class office and an A-class office in terms of price. It used to be that A-class office space was much more expensive, and then you had to pay the premium, whether you were paying for parking on top of it. And so people opted for a lower class of building. And now if you can get for not that much more or roughly the same price, a nicer building, it's worth stepping up and having that better environment. And you have that opportunity to offer it to people. In addition, there's no new construction for A-class office space. So whatever there is, and as it fills up, you'll be the guy. If costs, say, $500 a foot plus or minus to build a Class A office building minimum just for construction, and if you're buying them at $150, you're in good shape.
It just has to have the patience and the time to hold. I think the biggest thing that hurts the office market, I hate to say this with my outside voice, it's a lot of times the brokers.
Yeah.
Because the real estate brokers, they get a prospective tenant and they run them around to 10 different owners and try to find somebody desperate enough to give the store away. And then they tell the whole world about it, and then it creates a new downward trend.
And that becomes the market when it's really not.
And what happens is when people have a building and they owe $250 a foot, and it's worth maybe $150, but they can survive. If a broker comes in and says you need to spend $80 in tenant improvements and give 6 months of free rent, that's when they tap out.
Yeah.
And then somebody like me comes in and gets it cheaper, and I can afford to pay $25 or $30 in TIs, which has been something the brokers in Orange County think I'm literally nuts on. But I've done hundreds of thousands of feet using the methodology that we don't have to tear it out just to make everybody happy. And we've been getting TIs done for relatively little money in comparison to building standards and having very happy tenants.
And do you find that these buildings, as nice as they are, they do need work and freshen up and sprucing up, and then you come in, whether it's spruce up the lobby or you give somebody a refresh space, that the existing tenants and the potential new tenants appreciate it?
Every building needs to be refreshed. Even if you just built it today, there's always something you could do special to it. We're pretty big on staging our vacants, which has helped us a lot. We'll come in and take a vacant space and furnish it with furniture and put some soap plants in it and make it look like you could move into it. Everybody laughs and thinks I'm crazy. But 65% of my leasing is pre-staged spaces that people can walk in and say, it works for now. We don't have to worry. If they're downsizing, they have furniture. If they're increasing in size, they say, we've got 2,000 square foot of furniture. We're taking 4. Can we keep half the furniture until we get our own stuff?
Yeah.
And that's been the deal points that have made a difference for us.
Yeah. I mean, I find that correlates back to the residential market to a certain extent, right? People have a hard time visualizing. You and I might be able to look at the opportunity and see past old carpet or old paint or dark lights. But the average person, I feel like their initial reaction is what they take away. And so if you give them that, the path of least resistance, hey, you can move in tomorrow, people appreciate that.
We've probably done the majority of our leases with tenants that just call us directly on the sign or off of LoopNet or CoStar or one of the social media platforms. And they walk in and they see it and they ask what we're willing to do. And we say, we already cleaned the carpet. Maybe we could put an accent wall of paint or something in. And they say, okay. But if you walk in and tell them we can tear the conference room out and make it a glass wall and do this, that, and the other, the costs get to where the owner goes broke.
And do you find that on the brokerage side, as a broker, I put my hat on, we own a brokerage company, obviously the least amount of money the landlord has to spend, the better the deal should be and the least amount of heartache to get from A to B, as opposed to I want to come and rip it out. We have tenants come and look at our space and I want to rip out all the wall. I'm like, no, just find a different space. As much as it's hard to turn someone away, this isn't your deal.
Yeah, and that depends a lot on who your listing agent is. Depends a lot on who the other broker is. And you cater to the people that understand you. We have a lot of brokers that we know we can do deals with when they call, and some that we know we can't.
Yeah.
And it's not because we don't like each other, but they have a different business philosophy. They want to tear everything out. They've sold to their tenant that I'll get you everything built just the way you want. I'll get you a great deal and a bunch of free rent. And they send it out to a bunch of people.
Right. And then you're not that guy who goes and jumps in the pond and competes with 6 other guys. You put your cards on the table. If it works for you, do it. If it doesn't, let's move on.
Every once in a while, I do send a message that I can compete just for the heck of it.
Maybe it's the AT&T of the world or something like that where you want the credit. But I find my old friend Dave Colton, who was in the same boat, who just said, I'm going to put carpet and paint. I'm going to be the cheapest deal around. If you want the absolute nicest building or you need the most amount of free rent, you should go down the street. Otherwise, come here and I'll do your...
That's pretty much our whole business philosophy. And I have some leasing teams that work for me that are assigned just to those buildings. They can't go across the street. They got one thing to lease, my buildings.
And they should plug it and they should pitch the story that you want to tell.
Thank you. And I spend a lot of time meeting with tenants. Ironically, if a good tenant's coming for a second tour, I show up. And I'll say, yeah, I'm the building owner. Let's make a deal. And that means a lot to some of the companies. Even Kiewit just did 22,000 square foot at my Bristol building. Now, that's one I leaned into kind of hard. It was a 10-year nationally recognized name, head-to-head with the Irvine Company. And there was no way that Donald Brandt's team was going to beat me on that deal.
Yeah.
I didn't care what it cost. I was just going to win.
And you did.
And I won.
It doesn't happen often, but you did, right?
Yeah, and so everybody chuckled. I got a few phone calls. You did good, Mike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I met with their head people. We stood out on the balcony, and we cut a deal.
Yeah. And a lot of times that really is how deals get done, is rather than sitting and just grinding it out, you look the other person in the eye and tell me, what do you need?
I think with Kiewit, we got down to 8 points. I talked to their main man. I looked at him. I says, pick whichever 5 you want. I says, I got to just win 3. And he laughed. He says, I can do that.
Yeah.
And he says, you don't care which 5? I says, no.
So he gave up the glass conference room and took the cheaper rent, as I'm guessing.
That's probably what it, he did to a large extent. He wanted his sign on the building at no cost with visibility on the freeway, which he got.
Which didn't cost you anything.
Didn't cost me nothing. And he got one of the balconies for only half a load on the thing, and I was happy with it.
Yeah.
He was a good man.
And if your basis is low enough, you can do those kinds of things. The difficulty with the institutional ownership is they have all kinds of people to answer to, and then they've set the box. I look at it not to pick on a B of A or a Chase or a big bank, but when you go to them for a loan and then they go, hey, I got this box. Barry, you're over here. You're outside the box. Then I'm like, I got to go to a different bank. You're not expanding the box for me. And for you, you can make whatever box you want.
We're all cash flow driven. One thing I can say is that we'll make a lot of different types of deals, but it still has to have cash flow and economic sense.
Yeah.
And will we give some free rent? Everybody does. We do some TIs? Everybody does. We just keep it in check.
Yeah.
And I don't build for building value. I don't artificially pump my lease rates with freebies so I look good on a refinance or a sale. I look at the net yield to me on the term of the lease because I'm going to keep it forever. I'm not selling it.
Right.
So I want to make sure I got a good yield.
No, I agree. And then the truth of it is when you do, I'm curious your thoughts on doing shorter term lease versus longer term lease, because Irvine Company goes back and forth. If they think the market's hot, then they lock in on a long-term lease because the market's hot. Except when the market's hot, then the logic is it might get hotter, so why do I want to lock in longer term? I might be cutting myself short. And so then you revert back to the shorter lease. And then the market turns, you're like, I should have done that 10-year lease. But for you, if you're not selling it, is the longer-term lease with a stable company preferred?
I leave that up to the tenant. I'm here to serve my tenant. If the tenant wants a 10-year deal, let's do a 10-year deal. They want a 5-year deal, I'll do a 5-year deal. If they want a 3-year deal, they're taking it pretty much as is.
Because you can't recoup that over.
Can't recoup the cost. And I think it's still driven by the tenant. I think the Irvine Company in a good market is your best friend. In a bad market, they can hurt you because of their basis. Right now, they're my best friend because they're starting to raise their lease rates effective like now.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to enjoy the wind and cheer on my friends.
Just ride along.
You're my buddy.
With that said, I guess I'm curious, what is your prognosis for the office market here in Orange County? And then my follow-up would be, what about in other parts of Southern California? Because I know you're looking at other places.
People told me through the pandemic that nobody's going back to work. They told me the office buildings will be ghost towns. The whole world said that. But the whole world was people that didn't want to go back to work. They weren't the business owners saying it. It was the employees. Right. Just look at the freeways today. They don't have to tell me they're going back to work. They're showing me because the freeways are jammed worse than ever.
Yeah.
Companies are calling people back. Kroger is laying off hundreds of people every week for not returning to the office. My tenants' occupancy's up. My parking lots are filling up everywhere because companies realize that they need a collaborative effort of people working together in the office in order to accomplish things. A lot of times, some people work better from home. Most people draw a check from home and do better in maintaining their kids and their family, the dog, and their home projects.
Right. But some people got to get out of the house. They just can't deal with it.
They can't deal with it.
And as the business owner, depending upon what business you're in, right, I feel like there's certain industries where you could work from home and nobody cares. But being in the real estate business, I need the synergy. I need you in the office.
Absolutely. I think the office market everywhere probably is improving. I think Orange County is benefiting somewhat unfortunately, from the fires in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because there are people that have been impacted that have moved out in this area. So as their leases are up, they're relocating here or downsizing in LA and coming here. I think every market has its problems. And I think when you look at LA's office market's hurting, but you got to kind of look at what's happening in LA overall. The Irvine Company got out of some of their properties, but it was in downtown San Diego. It wasn't along the 805. I think it's the dynamics of what you're around and the support of the local police, the support of the city council, and support of the mayor, and all these things really drive whether people want to be in that area or not.
And for a long time in San Diego, that was the hip place to be. People were living downtown. They were working downtown. It was vibrant. We had other guests on here that head of the CDCC and the development down there, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle with the crime. It's a struggle with the homelessness. It's a struggle with getting the draw. You have the same issue in downtown LA.
Right. So I look at the areas, and sometimes I'll go talk to the mayor. I'll talk to the city council, and I'll see whether they're left or right of my needle. And my needle's not always right. My needle's about protecting my tenants. I don't want my tenants to ever worry when they go to their car if it's safe.
Right.
I just want them to know that it's a safe environment, that I'd walk at night and never worry. We don't chase out the homeless. We just make sure that they go someplace that's not private property because we don't want any problems.
Yeah.
We are really about tenant happiness because I'm more worried about the day they move in, because if they move in happy, chances are they're not going to move out.
Of course. And so where do you think the future is for your business? Will you be more aggressive as opportunities present themselves? Is it a methodical acquisition and stick to the model that you've had?
No.
Just make it up as you go?
Yeah, it depends on how I feel that day. My staff sometimes says I have yes and no days.
Yeah.
And yes and no really is about whether or not I have a lot on my plate. But I just recently purchased a building in Orange County, which was, I think, the largest office acquisition of 25.
Yes, congratulations.
And everybody said, Mike's done. Escrow on 2 more office buildings in Ontario as we speak. I think there's only 5 I don't own, so now there'll be 3 that I don't own. And I opened escrow yesterday on another building in San Diego, or Carlsbad, San Diego County.
Yeah, but good market.
But I'm moving that way. So everybody thought I was done. I've got 2 more offers going out in Irvine today, and I'm supposed to be done.
And so is the logic that these deals are just too good to pass up? Is the logic that there's value add and there's enough room that they make sense, so we'll keep going?
I think my logic is that if it never goes up in value, it still makes good sense.
As long as there's cash flow.
And as long as there's cash flow. And cash flow is probably more a determination of the owner and the owner's concept of how things will be done. A lot of owners are building their buildings and spending money to get building value to refi or sell.
Right.
We're trying to keep what we got, maintain it nicely, and have a monthly cash flow, and figure it worst come to worst in 25 years it's paid for. And that's our theory. It doesn't always work, but that's our theory. We don't have any buildings underwater anywhere. We've had some with its nose up against the water. Nothing's really drowned it.
But your basis is so much less than the guy who was there before you.
Timing is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at values of buildings, $125 a foot. That's 25-year ago prices.
Buildings in Ontario sell for twice as much money per foot as a building in Irvine.
Crazy.
And they're, call it $225 to $275 a foot for a B building in Ontario. And you're talking $125 plus or minus for an A building in Irvine.
Yeah. And you're buying size, you're buying scale, and you're buying at the right price where if you're able to keep it filled, then you'll be ahead of the game.
I think keeping it filled is just a concept of going to work. There's always people looking for office. There's always somebody not happy where they're at. But you have to start by answering the phone and being nice. Show up on time. Tell them the truth. They do appreciate that. We've been very fortunate in Orange County of being able to lease more than our share of space, even coming out of the Inland Empire. We do it all in-house. And we have a lot of cooperation from outside brokers, but we take the point to make sure that We do every single thing possible. We do a lot of deals actually with residential brokers.
Yeah.
We really cater to the residential broker because nobody else does.
Yeah, and nothing against the residential broker. They are a residential broker, so may not be super sophisticated, good in terms of the haggling on a commercial deal. And also, if they have the relationship with the tenant, then that's what you want.
And we don't, and a lot of brokers don't want to work with them. And I'm going to say probably 10, maybe 15% of our transactions are with residential brokers that have no idea what they're doing. But this is their dad's company, or it's their best friend, or it's their uncle.
Or their neighbor, or they sold them their house, or any of the above. And nothing against resional brokers.
We love them.
We love them. But I find that
I cater to them.
When we deal with them, I just say to them, look, please just let us, you get the tenant interested, tell me they want the space, tell me they like it, and then let me do the rest. And I'll pay you. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to draft the lease. You don't have to review it. You don't have to do any of that stuff. And I'll make your life easy. And then they go, great.
We do that all the time. Matter of fact, I appreciate the residential brokers enough that I put all my listings in the residential MLS.
Yes, for sure.
I absolutely
100%.
I want their help. I want CBRE's help. I want Newmark's help. I just want to be everybody's friend.
Yeah.
I want to pay everybody a commission.
There you go. There's the word of the day. That's the tip. If you're out there, he wants to pay everybody a commission, and he's got space to rent, and he'll make you a good deal.
Yeah, and we'll be fair.
Yeah.
We'll listen.
So final question, because I know we're running low on time. Where do you think, or what do you think, is the sort of the biggest challenge on the economy as a whole and how it relates back to the real estate market? Is it, certainly we have war and violence, is it crime, is it homelessness, is it wages, is it tariffs, is it all of the above? What keeps you up at night in terms of what you're watching and how it affects your world?
I think tariffs, wars, government, all that stuff, it's not going to change. It's just different. You can navigate that. I think the thing that makes California so tough is its litigation.
Yeah.
There's so much litigation. It's driving up insurance costs, making it impossible to get. Every other commercial is sue you for this, sue you for that. Nobody talks about go to work and earn a
living, right?
Earn a living. Everybody's talking about it's somebody else's fault. I think California needs to stop being the leader in frivolous lawsuits and starts needing to put caps on things so that they just don't go after people in a form of extortion. And property owners are just getting tired. They're leaving the state because of the cost of insurance. It's driving people out of the apartment business. It's driving people out of a lot of different industries because of the cost of insurance or the inability to get it.
Yeah, no question. I live that every day. Words couldn't be more true in terms of my world. And then even it trickles back to the average person who has homeowners insurance who, because of the fires or just because of general liability, has gone up. And so your insurance payment becomes a whole nother mortgage payment for you.
My residential insurance portfolio, I think the rents have gone up they've tripled on insurance costs.
Yes.
And with rent control, especially on apartments and that, you can't pass it through.
No, and there's no recoup. It's right off the bottom line. And we got dropped from policies this past week for absolutely no reason. And the insurance company used to go out, do an inspection, give you a correction list, kind of like a fix-it ticket from the DMV, and you'd fix whatever they found that was wrong. This fence is leaning, this rail is loose, and then fix it. Now they just send you a letter and go, you're dropped. Yep. And then when you go to search for it, there aren't even 5 guys that would even talk to you just because there's no market for it. And so from our mouths to whoever the new governor is and the insurance commissioner, there needs to be a change. There's no question because people can't survive. Not just landlords, but the average person.
I don't think it's just the governor, and I don't think it's just the insurance commissioner. It's got to be the people. It's got to be the people from the guy on the street to who they choose to elect.
Yeah.
Whether it be at the city council level, whether it be at the county, whether that be even at the state assembly, the Senate. All these people are the ones that are going to drive the decision because one person can't make a change. It's going to take an army of people saying it's not fair.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just get the right movement of people to realize it's not fair, it isn't an issue of political beliefs. It's just an understanding and a belief of what's fair.
And I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, landlord's making money. Let's just push the cost or the responsibility of whatever it is back onto them and protect the tenant. But people don't realize, whether it's commercial or residential, the more the landlord suffers, the worse it becomes for the tenant. You can only beat up the landlord so much. And then you want to make sure that the property is well maintained and that they're spending money and that they're making you a fair deal. And it's hard to do that when your costs are going through the roof.
They're constantly wanting to tax the supposed rich that are already paying a lot of taxes. But if you increase the expenses on the property or increase your insurance, eventually it gets passed on to the consumer. Everything gets passed on.
I find it also gets passed on to the employee of the owner of the property, so that people want raises, people want more, they want to do better. If the better the company does, the better the people within that organization do, or the more that company will hire more staff and create more jobs. And I feel like people lose that, and they just pick on the guy who owns the business. That's the worst guy to pick on. Not because it's me, but because that just makes common sense.
When I grew up, my dad said to get successful, you get to work a few minutes early, you stay a few minutes after, and you always honor your boss. And that's just not what happens anymore. People think if they start at 8, there was some traffic, so it's 8:10. And then it becomes 8:15. We have some of my young staff, I have them start at 7, and they know they're late at 6:45.
Yeah, and then it's hard to get people that will follow the rules, right? And I find at our office, people are there at 8, but then they're having coffee and making toast. And I get to my desk about 20 after. I won't name names, but the fact of the matter is it's easy to fall into that trap. And the truth of it is, I don't know about you, but as a business owner, it's just about the results at the end of the day, whether that's making a deal or doing your job or accomplishing a task. The fact of the matter is the proof's in the pudding.
I'm a family man. I'm a single dad, autistic son. So I know stuff happens. And I'm pretty sensitive with my staff. But I just ask them, as long as you start on time, we usually can accept some of the challenges during the day. And if you're a few minutes late, maybe just work a few minutes after. Not for me, but for your other teammates. Because if you're not there, somebody's got to cover you.
Yeah.
So just if you're there for each other, the company's okay. But you got to protect each other. Yeah. And that's the most important thing I always tell my staff. It's a team effort. We play something I call Moneyball. Not everybody on the team is the same, but everybody has something that they glow at, and we run on the concept of Moneyball. So we count on everybody to do what they do best at the right time, and we usually win.
Good words to live by. I'm going to leave it there. And as a single dad myself with an autistic son, I appreciate the challenges. And for all single dads out there doing what they need to do, you keep chugging along, right?
And single moms.
Yes, and single moms as well.
Let's not get ourselves in trouble.
Good. With all of that said, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your thoughts with us and your experiences, and certainly much continued success to you and your family and your company and your staff. And we appreciate it, and I'll look forward to more exciting acquisitions as the months go on.
Good. And we should thank the University of
I want to thank UCI. I want to thank OCTalkRadio, Paul, who's been sitting there quietly listening, taking notes all morning long. Hopefully he got something good to take away. Hopefully somebody else did as well out there. For everybody here, I'm Barry Saywitz. Thanks for tuning in, listening in. We'll see you back here next week on Let's Talk Real Estate.
There you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.